Very few monsters in film and other media are quite as prevalent as zombies, and with good reason. With so many more plausible disasters looming around the corner, such as war, climate change, and financial ruin, zombies offer a gritty escape into a future that, while it may be scary, we know to be fiction. On the one hand, some small part of us is terrified that a zombie apocalypse could be possible, but on the other hand, many of us hope for it. Decades of zombie movies and video games have given preppers and would-be zombie hunters the information to prepare for the inevitable rising of the dead. But how likely is it that we could actually make it out alive? What would it take to survive a zombie apocalypse? The first things that probably come to mind are guns, baseball bats, and giant ridiculous trucks with push bumpers. And while these things are definitely valuable tools, if you have to use them, you're probably in the worst case scenario, or you're just reckless. And either way, you probably won't last long. What every survivor really needs to focus on is the less glamorous aspects of post-apocalyptic life. Have seasonal allergies? Make sure you have Zyrtec on hand, or risk getting chomped by zombies who heard you sneezing. Allergic to bees? Stock up on EpiPens, unless you want to be that one loser who died from a bee sting instead of a horde of living dead. There are a lot of little details to take into consideration when trying to survive any apocalypse. The first and most obvious necessities would be clean drinking water, food, and general first aid. As a rule of thumb, each member of your party should drink about 1 gallon of water per day due to the physical exertion required to exist in a world of ravenous zombies. That can add up quickly, so make sure you have a way to collect fresh water, either through purifying existing water sources or desalinating ocean water. The average human can only go about 3 days to a week without water, so regardless of your survival skills, having drinking water in abundance is non-negotiable. Food is still critical, but more manageable. While a lack of food can lead to decreased physical fortitude, the average human can survive up to 3 weeks without food, as long as they have plenty of water. Finally, first aid supplies like bandages, hydrogen peroxide, and any needed prescription drugs will be a lifesaver when someone in your party inevitably hurts themselves. A gash from a rusty nail can be just as deadly as a zombie bite if not treated quickly. Then there are the ever-useful utility items we all use in everyday life. Duct tape alone has more uses than you'd ever expect, from securing barricades to restraining hostile humans to attaching knives to poles for extra zombie-killing reach. Pocket knives or multi-tools will find innumerable uses as well, such as sharpening steaks, severing restraints, or opening cans of food. Then there are flashlights. Many of us have gotten so used to having a flashlight app on our phones that we forget to keep a real, more powerful flashlight handy. When your phone eventually dies and there's no power available, having a flashlight could be the difference between life and death when traveling at night. As for transportation, while a car or truck might offer decent protection from the zombies outside, the engine noise will also attract their attention and potentially lead them to your hiding spot. Opt for something quieter and more maneuverable, like a bike, or if you're intent on using a car, steal somebody's Tesla. Just be prepared for when power sources stop working. So you've got your supplies and you're on the move, looking for somewhere safe to set up a base of operations. Step 1. Locate a mall. Then, don't go there. Places where large amounts of people can congregate are the perfect breeding ground for zombies. Enclosed areas with large crowds make for easy infection, and with all the people instinctively rushing to malls and grocery stores to stock up on supplies, they're the last place you want to be. Instead, head for more isolated areas. Your first option, and potentially the safest place near the average person, would be a tall highway overpass or bridge. If you could cart enough supplies onto the bridge, building materials, food, maybe even farming implements, soil, and seeds, your party could destroy both ends of the bridge and effectively separate yourselves from the dangers below. The biggest risk here would be running out of supplies, as it would be very difficult to go out and scavenge and get back up. Another option would be a large boat or yacht crewed by people you trust. Most zombie lore suggests that the living dead would be unable to swim due to their ruined motor functions. As long as you were in deep enough water, you'd be completely isolated from zombies and most of humanity as well. The biggest problem with using a modern boat is their need for fuel. If you run out of gas, you're dead in the water. So if you decide to set up an aquatic base of operations, make sure you have as much fuel as you can possibly carry. 2 other hiding places that could become an option thanks to your boat would be small uninhabited islands and offshore oil rigs. A private island would be ideal for those with enough survival experience to build shelter, rain capture devices, and traps to catch wild animals and any hostile humans who show up looking for a fight. Your party would have plenty of space to spread out depending on the size of the island, and the odds of zombies showing up on your beach are virtually zero. If you can find an uninhabited island far enough from other land and people, you can survive the end of the world in relative comfort. Finally, a deep-sea oil rig is an ideal spot to wait out the zombie apocalypse. You'd be miles from the nearest land, suspended well above the water level, have plenty of existing, near-indestructible metal shelter, and provided you have fishing equipment, you've got an endless supply of food at your fingertips. For those of us who don't fancy the idea of building shelter from scratch on a remote island and value the security of a floating fortress, a deep-sea oil rig is the way to go. Of course, by choosing any of these isolated hiding spots, you limit your ability to gather news and information from the mainland, which means you'll need to make sure you have a radio or some other form of communication with the outside world to know when it's safe to come home, if ever. Could the human race recover from a zombie outbreak? Possibly. With the military and the Center for Disease Control working together, it's hard to imagine a scenario where mindless monsters eradicate the entire human race. But it doesn't hurt to be prepared and make sure you don't become part of the horde. If you enjoyed this video,